Alcaraz and Juan Carlos Ferrero split up, and
we got two major splits within the sport. Tennis, man.
I mean, he's on a legendary career already.
I think Alcaraz definitely got room for improvement.
It feels like we'd seen the end of that kind of Carlos Alcaraz.
They're going to look at Carlos and what he does and how he loves to be aggressive and move forward, because we lost a lot of that.
I mean, Alcaraz, I'm sorry, but this guy's amazing.
You're talking about a phenom like a Carlos Alcaraz.
Carlos Alcaraz!
Right now, Indian Wells 2026 is live, and Jannik Sinner is sitting in that draw staring at a 3,350-point deficit that gets uglier with every passing week. Carlos Alcaraz just walked into the California desert fresh off a perfect 12-0 season, 2 titles banked, and a career Grand Slam completed at 22, the youngest man in tennis history to do it. Here's what nobody wants to say out loud, and this is the part where Alcaraz has crossed a line.
I think he's playing like Federer.
It's the biggest victory of his career for sure.
No, I'm hungry.
If player and coach aren't getting along, that's what happened.
This guy, Carlos Alcaraz, in my opinion, is the most talented 2021-22 that I've ever seen on a tennis court. That's more than Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, who I have great respect.
Carlos is on a pace to become the best of all time.
Paul Annacone, the man who coached Roger Federer at his peak, gave a verdict this week sharp enough to cut through every piece of noise surrounding this rivalry. If the men play their absolute best, Alcaraz is just better. He does more things well and more dangerously. A professional assessment from someone who's seen greatness up close, and he still landed on Carlitos. Meanwhile, Sinner publicly admitted a small slump after losing to Djokovic in Melbourne, failing to convert 16 of 18 breakpoints, then getting bounced by Mensik in Doha. Arriving at Indian Wells without a title in 2026, the pressure on Sinner's shoulders has quietly become impossible to ignore. Alcaraz's presser? Completely different energy. On the court, I just control myself, and in a calm place, I can find the solutions. The calmest man in the draw also happens to be the most dangerous, and rivals are panicking whether they're admitting it publicly or not. Hit subscribe right now, because what's coming next in this breakdown is something most channels won't touch.
It's maybe contract, maybe some other stuff.
Maybe Carlos's dad and Juan Carlos had a different vision. Some people think maybe they couldn't get a contract together.
This shifts everything for Carlos.
Can anyone beat Carlos?
Alcaraz just too good.
Maybe even catch Djokovic.
I hear that I have the contract over there, but I haven't seen him yet. So I was in the preseason, and some videos came up with the movement. So I didn't, to be honest, I didn't aware that it was really similar to knowledge serve. So
to understand why this moment feels genuinely different from anything we've seen in this rivalry before, you have to go back to Melbourne on February 1st, 2026, Rod Laver Arena, Australian Open Final, Novak Djokovic, a man who had won that specific stage 10 times without ever losing, took the opening set 6-2 in just 33 minutes. Every Serbian fan in the building thought they were watching history unfold. What happened next is the reason we're having this conversation. Today, Alcaraz didn't adjust his tactics cautiously or wait for Djokovic to slow down. He went after him harder. Broke his serve in the third game of the second set, won 12 of the final 15 points of that set, carried that momentum straight into the third, broke early again, and then survived a brutal fourth set where Djokovic fended off 6 breakpoints in a single game just to stay alive. None of it was enough. Final score, 2-6, 6-2, 6-3, 7-5 in 3 hours and 2 minutes.
We have to thank Novak because he's pushing the ceiling higher and higher and putting the bar up higher and higher. And it's going to make players like Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner want to continue their careers much, much longer than we did in the past. At 38, I mean, Carlos Alcaraz is such an unbelievable athlete that I would assume that he could be playing for at least another 15 years. And if he is, he'll be at the top because he's so talented. His knowledge of the game and the knowledge of tactics already at his age is absolutely incredible.
At 22 years and 272 days old, Alcaraz became the youngest man in tennis history, not just the Open era, in the entire history of the sport, to complete the career Grand Slam. He broke a record held since 1938. He did it by defeating the most decorated hardcourt player in the history of the sport on that player's personal fortress, in front of a crowd that desperately wanted the other outcome. When a 22-year-old does something no human being has done faster in nearly 9 decades of tennis, a line gets crossed and the sport doesn't look the same afterward. Jannik Sinner entered 2026 as the reigning Australian Open champion, a 2-time defending title holder in Melbourne, and a player who had spent the better part of 2024 at world number 1. He arrived in Australia this January, carrying serious momentum from his ATP Finals title in November, where he beat Alcaraz in the final without dropping a set. Then, Melbourne happened. Sinner reached the semifinals without any major alarm bells, but the Djokovic match exposed something uncomfortable. He lost in 5 sets after failing to convert 16 of 18 breakpoints across the entire match. 16. Statistically, that's a catastrophic conversion rate at a Grand Slam semifinal. He had the opportunities to win comfortably and couldn't finish them. Djokovic, at 38 years old, found a way through purely on experience and mental fortitude, while Sinner, the younger, physically fresher player, came up short when it mattered. Then came Doha, his first tournament back after Melbourne. Sinner lost to Jakub Mensik in the quarterfinals. A talented young player, yes, but a player Sinner at full strength would be heavily favored against on any given day. After the loss, Sinner himself publicly acknowledged he was in a small slump. Now consider what Alcaraz was doing at the exact same time. While Sinner was losing in Doha's quarterfinals, Alcaraz was winning the entire tournament, beating Arthur Fils 6-2, 6-1 in the final in 50 minutes flat. 50 minutes. He described that Doha final as probably one of the top 10 matches of his career. A 50-minute demolition job ranked in his personal top 10. That detail alone should send a chill through every player in the Indian Wells draw.
Yes, I do have more doubts that I can win slams, particularly against these 2 guys. But at the same time, I know that while I'm still active and when I enter on the court, I don't care who is across the net. I always believe I'm better and I believe that I deserve to win, and I'm going to do everything I can do to win.
The gap in the ATP rankings currently sits at 3,350 points. For context, a Masters 1000 title is worth 1,000 points. Sinner would need to win Indian Wells outright and have Alcaraz lose in the second round, just to make a meaningful dent. The mathematics of this situation are genuinely difficult for the Italian. The head-to-head between these two stands at 10-6 in Alcaraz's favor across 16 ATP level meetings. At Grand Slam level specifically, Alcaraz leads 4-2. In finals between the two, the ledger reads 5-3 for the Spaniard. What makes those numbers more significant than they appear on the surface is the trajectory. Sinner won their most recent head-to-head meeting at the 2025 ATP Finals in November. He won Cincinnati in 2025, but every time the biggest stage arrived, French Open Final, Wimbledon Final, US Open Final, Alcaraz found a way through. 3 consecutive Grand Slam final victories over the same opponent in a single calendar year, with Sinner unable to find an answer across 3 different surfaces and 3 different conditions. Brad Gilbert, who has coached multiple world number 1s throughout his career, put the current state of the rivalry in terms that are hard to argue with. Alcaraz is in the pole position, he's in front, no doubt. He was careful to add that both players are only 22 and 24 years old respectively, making long-term predictions dangerous. But in terms of where things stand right now, in March 2026, that assessment is difficult to challenge with any credibility. Tim Henman went further on the tactical specifics. He noted that the Indian Wells courts, among the slowest hard courts on the entire ATP circuit, suit Alcaraz's game more naturally than Sinner's. A slower surface gives Alcaraz more time to construct points, use his drop shot, get to the net, and generate the kind of all-court chaos that opponents genuinely struggle to handle.
Players trying to catch me up. They study my game. They study how I play, trying to beat me, trying to challenge me.
For me, Sinner, as far as controlling the middle of the court. So you serve first ball, you return deep, first ball in the middle of the court. He's as good as I've seen at swallowing the middle of the court with pace. You can hit it hard. He will stay in that cross-court rally if he needs to, and you can't gain on him with pace.
For Sinner, whose game is built around pace, precision, and hitting through opponents, a slow court removes one of his primary weapons. Sinner has never won at Indian Wells. His best results here are 2 semi-final appearances in 2023 and 2024. Both times he lost to Alcaraz, before anyone suggests Alcaraz is some untouchable robot cruising through 2026 without friction. There was that Doha moment worth examining properly. During his quarterfinal against Karen Khachanov at 4-4 in the opening set, chair umpire Maria Cicak issued Alcaraz a time violation after he exceeded the 25-second shot clock, retrieving his towel following a long rally. Alcaraz, visibly furious, told her directly that the ATP rules were, and this is a direct quote, always there e. He continued pressing the argument during the changeover, asking sarcastically what he was supposed to do next time, run to the baseline instead of getting his towel. After winning the match, he addressed it in his press conference with genuine substance rather than just dismissing it. He called the time rule absurd after physically demanding points, argued the crowd noise during celebrations contributed to delays outside his control, and made a pointed case that the ATP's stated goal of growing its audience was being undermined by rules that rushed players before they could deliver quality tennis. Notably, and this detail often gets buried, even Khachanov thought the violation was unjustified and asked the umpire to cancel it. She couldn't. The reason this incident matters isn't because Alcaraz lost his composure. It's because he won the match anyway. He vented, made his case, went on to win in 3 sets, coming back from dropping the first set in a tiebreak.
Well, it was really close on that match, I'd say. In the first round, in the first set, sorry. In the first set, I just had few break points that I couldn't make it, one set ball that I didn't make it.
At his Indian Wells presser this week, Alcaraz pointed to emotional control on court, not ground strokes, as the single biggest reason behind his perfect start to 2026. A player who can rage at an umpire in one breath and then identify inner calm as his greatest weapon in the next. That's a version of Alcaraz his rivals genuinely have no blueprint for. The draw at Indian Wells placed Djokovic in Alcaraz's half, setting up a potential semi-final rematch of the Australian Open final. Djokovic is a 5-time Indian Wells champion who hasn't won here since 2016 and has failed to reach the quarterfinal in 5 straight appearances at this tournament before his Australian Open run this year. A deep run here would genuinely test whether his Melbourne form was a one-tournament resurgence or something more sustained. In the other half, Sinner faces Ben Shelton in a projected quarterfinal, a player coming in hot from a Dallas title and deeply comfortable on fast American hard courts. Should Sinner navigate that, a potential semi-final against Lorenzo Musetti awaits before any final against Alcaraz even becomes possible. The defending champion Jack Draper returns to the desert after an arm injury derailed his 2025 season post-title. His presence adds another variable, though his match sharpness after months away remains an open question. For Alcaraz, a 3rd consecutive Indian Wells title would put him in the rarest company in the tournament's history, matching Djokovic's run of 3 straight between 2014 and 2016. His career record at this tournament, 20 wins and only 3 losses, stands as one of the most dominant records any active player holds at a single Masters event. At 22 years old, with a career Grand Slam already completed, a 3,350-point ranking lead, and Indian Wells in his sights, Carlos Alcaraz hasn't just raised the bar in men's tennis in 2026. He's moved it somewhere his rivals are genuinely struggling to reach, and the evidence building week by week makes it harder to look away. A line got crossed this season, and every rival walking into Indian Wells this week already knows it.
I don't want this to be the end for his career. I want him to keep going and see if he can maybe even catch Djokovic. He's got a long way to go to do that, obviously, with 24. But the one thing with Alcaraz that's so amazing to me is he wins the big moments in every match that he plays. He wins the 5-setter.
You go from coaching to literally, there's no settlement, there's nothing, you're done. That's how it goes in tennis. And maybe in this situation, it wasn't entirely Carlos's doing.
If you made it this far, you already know this channel doesn't do surface-level takes. We go into the numbers, the tactics, the psychology, the stuff that actually explains what's happening in tennis rather than just reacting to it. Subscribe if you haven't already, hit the notification bell, and drop your prediction for the Indian Wells final in the comments below. We read every single one. See you in the next one.